I guess I just first want to say congratulations on this film. I know that you've
Thank you.
earned a few nominations recently, which I mean is just incredible. But I mean it's a very difficult watch in a number of different ways, and I really commend you for wanting to do this and to. I mean, at the end of the day, you're a journalist, and we know that our work does come with diving into very difficult topics, but wanting to hold those in power accountable for their
Mhm.
actions, their votes, for the government's place in society. And so I
Right.
think at the end of the day, your film does all of that and more. And so it's such an honor to be able to speak with you about it.
Thank you.
Of course. I mean, I guess I can start off with that. I know it's been several years since when it comes to the recorded footage that we get to see in the film. It's been
Mhm.
about 10 years or so since when you
Yeah.
first started recording to about 2019 when the film ends. Um, how have you been feeling? I mean, just these last few months in promoting this film and sharing it with audiences worldwide. How has that journey been for you?
It's just because we took such a long journey to finish making this film, I still it's the highlight of my life, I think, when I finally premiered the film, starting with Sundance. I really felt like the story, the journey which was on my shoulder just traveled off, and it's no longer just my own story, but it's been shared. And so I just felt like I've done my job as a storyteller, and
Mhm.
it was a great experience. And because I've been making TV docs and short docs for online, I never had a chance to be in a theater with audience. And I realized topic like this, it's really important to be surrounded by people in the safe space to share that moment. So I've been really having amazing experience with Q&A and traveling around with the film.
What do you remember from the Sundance part of it with the premiere? I mean, I've never attended Sundance myself, but I know so many people who love going to that festival.
Yes, you have the best audience, really, devoted cinephile and cinephile and um yeah, when we finished our premiere, I sat down and I watched together with audience. I just was so amazed with the reaction. I mean, different places I realized have different reaction with, but really sincere reaction and amazing question. And once we finished Q&A, someone from Seattle decided to put our favorite music, I Will Survive. So I grabbed the microphone, started singing. My producer Hannah tried to, pull the microphone away to for the risk management, but then everyone came on the stage and we start
Oh,
dancing, doing karaoke all together. It was just realization of like how many people have been there. Um, so I'll never forget that moment. It's one of the most memorable, yeah, experience.
that's so lovely. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, those who have seen the film, they know exactly why that song is so important and the perfect song
Mm-hmm.
for that moment. I guess kind of diving a little bit into the film itself. I can't necessarily remember if it is stated right away with the film, but I guess do you remember as you started your own work and your investigation into your case, when you maybe had the idea or I guess the moment that you decided that it was necessary to start recording all of this, and if you knew at that point that you wanted to do a documentary, or if that was more so for your own purposes.
Yeah, so first 2 years was purely protection reason and also investigation reason for
Mhm.
myself. I started recording conversation with investigator because I just start being skeptical of if he's doing his job, or is it the legal reason, or is it any power related reason? So I started recording the conversation. Um, but when the case finally, arrest warrant was disappeared, and when the case was finally dropped, and I had nowhere to reach, I decided to ask to reopen the case
Hmm.
in 2017. And also that was the year when Japan was almost start thinking about updating our 110 years old rape law. So it was very important timing. I realized that even we had that discussion of changing the rape law, the media was not really, um, there were some journalists who came to the press conference, which appears in the beginning of the film, but I feel like they just came to see me, what
Hmm.
kind of women would speak about rape, and they didn't really cover the story. So yeah, that was the moment I felt like maybe if it's still hard to cover in Japan, then maybe that's something I can do.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I was very curious prior to your case, and as you say in the film, you did not anticipate becoming an activist or a figure. This is, you were just somebody who experienced this. Um, and I was curious when it came time that politicians were discussing the archaic rape law, and even before then, what types of stories were being covered as it related to that law, or did you not really even see that being covered so much in the press?
Not much in the press, I would say. And also, but many women were trying to push for this law to change. But then there were another topic came up, and it was, um, uh, again, like behind the topic. So I just, and in Japanese parliament, there are certain time that's open to discuss about
Hmm.
this issue. So
Hmm.
I felt like the time is going to be end. So I think not just me, but many people start feeling like we really have to try to highlight to push this topic to come up. Um, but it's just the culture talking about sexual violence is very taboo, and there's a strong stigma against sexual violence survivor. So that's I think one of the reason.
Hmm. It's kind of it's the curse of the 24-hour news cycle, right? You always have to
Mm.
be on top of what's happening. And sometimes there are topics that are very worthy of being discussed, but something else happens and you have to devote your resources to that.
Mm.
I know you know that very well as a journalist yourself. Um, because you are, you know, in those press rooms and you have so many colleagues, I'm very curious, being a member of the press yourself, when you did decide to come forward and share your name, share your face, do your press conference, and have other people report on you, and oftentimes those stories kind of going in very negative directions, very misogynistic directions. I guess how did that feel to experience that, to hear that from colleagues in your own field?
I was disappointed to start with when I tried to let um, other journalists, senior journalists, to know that I'm planning to do this. They even give me idea what I need to wear.
Hmm.
And also what they say was like, if you don't do press conference, we can cover the story. And journalist job itself is it's going out there, ask question, find, what it's going on. And I just felt like they are skipping that part and waiting for the story to happen or people
Hmm.
to tell. But that's not really journalism. And even I did that, it was still hard to ask for other journalists who might be able to ask more questions for people who I couldn't even reach,
Hmm.
top of the police and politician. It wasn't, yeah, it didn't happen. So, yeah, it was really realization of, wow, I don't know, it's really hard.
Hmm.
The journalism in Japan is really behind, I felt. But again, I was so breaking the classic rules, not covering, not talking, not taking your own side in the story. And that's what that's everything I did in this film. So that was also a hard line for me to close.
Mhm.
Um, First, I was thinking, um, should I interview the guy, Yamaguchi? Does he need to say something? Because it's not okay to me to just to tell my one-sided story.
Mhm.
But then, it by time I just was super convinced that it is okay in the film
Mhm.
that it's okay to tell my own story, and it is important to tell a story from the survivor point of view because I haven't seen such a film before, and I felt like that at least that's something I can do, and I'm really happy that I finished it. It took some time, but because it was really empowering moment to know that I can tell my own story. I don't need any other media, anyone to tell what happened to me.
Mhm. And I mean that, journalists, we are used to not being the story. We're used to telling other people's stories. And I did want to know, as you are telling a story, you're reporting, you're doing everything that you would normally do for any other article, feature, whatever it might be, um, if those same steps had to be taken. And it is very interesting to hear you say that you did consider whether to speak with the individual and,
Mhm.
just the back and forth that you had on that. But I am glad that ultimately you did decide to choose, your own story to focus on that. Um, I also think, I could see you being frustrated from the writing perspective with this because you weren't able to get all of those official voices that you wanted. And when you do, you get very blanket statements and
Mhm.
just kind of being read off of press release, essentially. Can you tell me a little bit about that process too, trying and sometimes failing to get those either statements or interviews with the head of the police, with the investigator, so many other people that would have added even more to the story.
Yeah. Wow. Well, yeah, these um officials, the police, prosecutors were the most difficult people, organization to uh request interview from the front door. So I tried to make that happen in so many ways, but yeah, it was really difficult. So in the end, for the person who stopped the arrest, the top of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police that time, I had to do doorstep and I
Yes.
attempt to try 7 times in total. And he just ran away. And I didn't imagine in my life that I will run after such a powerful police person. So that was such a buzzer. I was wearing really nice suit, not suit, but as a journalist that I will be polite and interview. But then I felt like I should have worn sneakers and
Yes.
like I should have been wearing all the sport gear so that I could run after faster. But that's what I had to do.
Mhm. And we do see that in the film, and you said the same thing. I wish I didn't wear high heels or whatever you were wearing.
Yeah.
Um, I I really commend you for really showing so many different sides of yourself in this film. We see you with as much grace as and poise as possible when faced with, I mean, really one of the worst experiences anybody in this world can face. But then, you're not shy. You don't shy away from showing your vulnerability and you being in the hospital and you speaking with your family and going through very difficult family conversations. I guess why was that important to show? I guess I understand why that is important to show, but I guess if you can tell me a little bit about your own reasoning. Some people might not want to include a lot of those details.
Yeah. Well, when I finished writing the book in
Mhm.
2017, I mainly focused on the investigation process as a journalist. And in this film, I wanted sincerely face to myself as a survivor and to explore what was really going on inside of me. So I decided to go back to my diaries, and it was it was a hard decision to make. Documenting everyday life was rather easier because it has been done by my friend and close person. So but to choose what to put, what kind of what is okay, what kind of emotion, how much emotion is okay. That was really hard. What kind of personal, you know, yeah, hard to show. But then what was important for me was to break the idea of survivor too. I mean, we live everyday life, even such a, you know, ho horrific thing happen to you, we have a good time and bad time, and it's all of it. Because I felt like there was strong stereotyping. Like in police, I was told that you have to cry more, you have to be upset, otherwise we can, trust you. In press conference, I
Hmm.
also was told that you have to be certain way, otherwise people wouldn't trust you.
Hmm.
So I just felt like we need to break that norm. Um, and Every time when I felt like, oh, this is too much, I don't want to put some of the scenes, especially the hospital and, before the hospital. Uh, but I had to ask myself if I were making documentary film about someone else, what I do.
Hmm.
I think that's important element in in the story. So
Hmm.
yeah, there were that moment that I have to come back to the director point of view. It was a really weird relationship again with myself, but that's how we've been, yeah, con- start constructing and deconstruct and yeah, complete the film.
Um, I, I, I was curious too, being in the director's chair for this. Again, being so personally connected with the story, and then also having to look at it from the filmmaking lens. I'm sure a lot of that maybe played and jumbled with your mind a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah,
Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
yes. I mean, to start with filming, I could never think about directing where I was. It was my everyday crazy life to face with the case investigation. So, um, I didn't really have the vision what the video should be. It
Hmm.
was just I just really trusted my friends. I mean, it was just enough that my friend, the producer or the camera person who was with me, that I felt that I'm going through this. We are trying to seek for truth together.
Hmm.
But yeah, in editing room, I think that was when I really have to sit down on the editor's chair,
Hmm.
and it was hard. We put a bit of sense in the film, but when I couldn't take to when it was too traumatic, I or too much emotionally, I tend to doze off. I tend to sleep wherever I was. And so in the editing room, in the beginning, I was always sleeping. But towards the end, me and my editor would start realizing, oh, I'm not dozing these days. And I think the first time when we complete the whole film, I watched it through without dozing off. So that was like, okay,
That was a
good.
good sign. Yeah,
Yeah, as a director and as a survivor in the same chair.
that's wonderful. I I'm curious. We see you dealing with coming forward with your case in the media, and I guess going through that cycle. You go through the cycle with your book being released. You go through the
Mhm.
cycle of going to trial. How do you compare this cycle of releasing your film and I guess combining all of that out in the world? Do you find that either reception or reactions have been different with each of those phases, especially now as you are sharing the story more so overseas. How
Yeah.
how is that? factor into that as well.
Yeah, you're right. With this film, we started off from United States, Sundance, and since then we just really keep traveling around the globe. And for me, it's been really empowering because I still receive um, online trolls, and it's always almost in Japanese.
Mm.
So whenever I'm outside, I feel more, when I don't hear Japanese language, I somehow feel more relaxed because, okay, people who is here maybe are not the faceless, nameless people who's trying to threaten me online. Um, and even many things has changed, and I'm really optimistic that it's getting better in Japan. Still, talking about this issue is quite hard.
Mhm.
So for us, having this amazing reception, support, also meeting other survivors, it's been a huge support for this film, for myself. And I feel like we are building up now the huge support system um, to hopefully to be ready to for the release one day in Japan.
Mhm.
It will be the hardest one. But so yeah, before releasing book, it was constantly hitting more direct comments
Mhm.
towards the book, only in Japanese, and it wasn't really present because you somehow see a lot of more negative things going around. But also, years shifted from 2017. After all, Me Too movement happened, and world has been shifting a lot as well in Japan as well. So I'm sure, yeah, how people would take this sensitive topic and stories, they are prepared.
Mhm. When is the film going to be released in Japan?
We're trying our best to make that happen, but we don't have any news yet. Mm.
One of these days, it'll
Yes,
come.
yes.
I did just want to ask you one more question, and that
Mhm.
is, at the end of the film, you and your friend, as you are singing "I Will Survive" and that song is starting, your friend says that that was the end of an era, despite how difficult that era was, and maybe not the best word necessarily for it. But I was curious, and what is this era now for you as you're looking ahead? What is this current Shiori era?
The proof of survived. I'm still surviving every day, but proved and full of possibility. Um, that once I thought I have no voice, but then to know, finishing this film, I was really empowered by it. It's during the filmmaking process, during, sitting in a director chair in the editing room, it wasn't therapeutic. But once I finished making it, it was really a huge release that I could have done it. And it's really empowering that you can tell your own story. So this is, I don't know what era this is, but it's an exciting one for sure.
Good. Well, I'm very happy for you that, you're getting a lot of good comments about this film. It really is a I like I said, I really commend you for putting yourself forward and doing all of this work. And I cried many times while watching this film, so it makes it even more, special to be seeing you in front of me. But really, congratulations on everything.
Thank you, Emma.
Of course.